Hello and welcome to Digital Anthropos. I had this idea for a long time while coaching and training teams that a coach in a transformation needs to understand more than just the organizational part of things. So this is why I want to talk to you today about why Agile coaching is incomplete without technical coaching. And I also have some slides prepared on this topic. I'm very passionate about this idea that you either have the skills to do either both of them, Agile coaching and technical coaching, but that is difficult, or you just do one of them and then you need a partner, a coach that would know how to do the other. But anyway, it's not easy for a team to do transformation only on one side, and it won't be that effective for the management, for the whole organization, for the whole system, and also even it won't be that effective for the coach that does this work. So let's get into it. I have thought a bit about trying to explain what Agile coaching is not in the beginning, because I often see these misinterpretations that you find all over at clients when discussing with different people in organizations or on the web. So I have only 3 quotes, but I guess you can find many of these everywhere. And first of all, I have a quote saying Agile is a project management methodology. That's really weird, because methodology typically means something very big like CMMI, or something like RUP, the Rational Unified Process, or something like a big process. So I don't think Agile can be that, because it's just a manifesto with 4 lines of text and then 12 values attached to it, so that's kind of difficult. Then it's about project management. I don't think that Agile is just about project management. It's more about many other things. It's also about the people. It's not about the project itself. When we talk about project management, we have a project. So you can have Agile without a project, because that's exactly the idea. The purpose is not to have a project. The purpose is to deliver value to everyone who's involved. The second one, Agile coaches train corporate team on Agile methodologies. Wow, so Agile coaches already are trainers, and they are about corporate teams, not about teams, not about people, not about management. It's just corporate teams. So this is a very shallow level of understanding what coaching is. Of course, here you can have Agile coaches who do both organizational and technical training, but still it's a very shallow view of the world. And on Agile methodologies, so here we're talking about different ideas around Agile, but still I don't think we have many Agile methodologies. Probably SAFe is one of them, because it's very dense, but apart for that, Scrum is a framework, XP is a framework, and Kanban is a framework. So I don't think we have a lot of Agile methodology. So already you can see the corporate feel of this idea, of this quote. The third quote says, an Agile coach is a person who is responsible for creating and improving Agile processes within a team or a company. Here we're already losing the people side, so we're just talking about processes. Again, a very narrow view of the world, and if we just talk about processes, then there's nothing different between an Agile coach and a process manager, or improvement manager, or someone who just took care about processes before in a big corporate environment and now takes care about the Agile processes. So it's just using the same tools, the same techniques that people have used before, but now we just put an Agile in front. So now let's see a bit about what I think Agile is. Yeah, not surprising that people get agile coaching wrong. That's so true, because if you look at these quotes, if you look at what people believe in a big organization, that you'd understand why people get agile coaching wrong. And it's kind of obvious why we have this distorted view of what things are and what things should be in this world. It's obvious that for big corporate environments it's a difficult thing to tackle and difficult change, and maybe some of them don't even need to change. They're just doing this because they hope that sometimes things will get improved because you just put a new shiny thing on. What is agile coaching? I have some quotes here. Coaches open people's minds to new possibilities, which changes the way they make decisions and interact with each other. Yeah, that sounds what I believe that coaching is. It's about letting people know that you can learn more, you can do more, you can make decisions of your own, you can start being an adult in a team and not just a child who's being told what to do in a micromanagement approach. Agile coaching is a collaboration with people in a thought-provoking and creative journey. So already this is more like the Agile I know, where we want to create things, we want to collaborate, we want to improve things to the extent that people can be independent, can work in a team, collaborate in a team, and stop having that much outside management, and they can start self-managing on their decisions. And this is the idea of the mindset, to stop micromanaging and trying to behave like an adult and take your own decisions. This is the definition from Wikipedia, which explains what coaching is. It's a kind of form of development where you have a person who knows more, and then you have a learner who wants to achieve a certain goal that can be professional or personal. This is about coaching. Again, this is a bit different because we're not talking just about agile coaching. We're talking about coaching in general. And this is important because I want to show what is the difference between agile coaching and coaching. And this is it. Coaches are certified by reputable organizations after thorough training. Coaching is a business where people are involved with psychological studies, with social studies. Generally, coaches who would help you achieve a personal or a professional goal have learned a lot about these topics, and it's very shallow to say that agile coaches are the same, because typically agile coaches come from a technical environment. They were managers or programmers or testers or analysts or anything like that, and then they started liking more and more to help people, and at this one moment they saw that they like agile, so they learned more about agile, and then they started helping other teams get involved with this kind of work. This is agile coaching, but they don't have any coaching per se training. So this is why agile coaching is a bit of a misnomer, because you put this name coach inside, but the coach means something very different, where you really need to have studies in psychology, in social science, in how the brain works, in how to address a person, in how to use certain words and so on. So I don't really agree to this word of agile coaching. That's why I typically call what I do organizational coaching. I don't consider myself a coach. I'm not trained to be a coach. So it's just that kind of name that got into the public's eye, and everybody says you're a coach because you just do this thing of helping teams transform into a new way of work. What should an agile coach do? This is kind of a very short description of what I think an agile coach should do, but I tried to be short and try to get most out of it. We have 4 areas: people, teams, way of working, and system thinking. First of all, the things that typically in corporate environments is often forgot is the idea that an agile consultant, coach, organizational coach, manager will need to work with people. Typically big companies forget about that and just talk about processes and tools and processes. We need to start thinking about people and how to work with people, with teams, with management on certain areas. Empowerment in steps, they should all be empowered to take decisions because it's faster. That's the truth. If you want to wait for everybody to be on board, it starts being extremely slow. So in today's market, you cannot have this ability anymore, or it's way too expensive, let's say today, to wait 6 months, 9 months, 1 year for some board, some committee to take a decision. It's a lot easier to try something small, see if it works, make this experiment, and then if it works, it's good. You can start getting a bigger budget on it and implementing it with more money, more investment. And if it doesn't work, it just doesn't work, and you go on. It's a lot easier to do this for time to market than just trying to get approval for some proof of concept, and that takes 9 months, 1 year until everybody in the committee agrees. So this is about empowerment. But then I say here personal responsibility. So it's everyone's responsibility to do their best job. And in big corporate environments, typically the problem is with blaming. So it's very easy to say the others didn't do their job, so I'm fine, it's okay. So everybody's blaming everybody, but nothing gets done. So personal responsibility, it is extremely important when we talk about change, and this change of, mindset, let's say in short. Also, trying to do a bit more than your job description is, that's extremely difficult in some environments, because people were used to do just one thing, and if they would do more, they would get some critics or even worse, so then nobody's doing a bit more. So you have sometimes these gaps in between responsibilities, or you just have some responsibilities that aren't that well defined. This is all working with people and trying to see what fits best for a certain team, for a certain department. It is extremely important to make this framework for them work so that they will have the benefits and they will love doing what they do with as few breaks as possible. Then with teams, it's important to have this mindset of continuous improvement. You need to start working and behaving like a team. You need to start thinking that everything can be improved, small, little by little. And it's again a process of getting the teams be independent in this mindset of continuous improvement. I think this is probably one of the most important things that Agile and Lean and Kanban came with, the idea that you need to continuously improve. You need to look at how you can improve yourself continuously, how you can improve your team, your small department or bigger department, your organization in the bigger scale. And sometimes you need to fight for this. So how you state the ideas of continuous improvement, how you express yourself, these are all part of what an agile coach should do. Try to help teams discuss, explain, identify things that they'd like to improve in their environment. Observing is very important in this part. So if a team member observes something, you'd like the team member to say, okay, I saw this and I'd like to either come with a solution or ask the team what we could do about it. Quite often in big environments, in big organization, people are not used to that. They just don't see what could be improved, and they never had this power to improve things. So it's very difficult for them to have to do this. Again, this is part of organizational coaching, the things that I do. If you do that, little by little, you'll be able to achieve the self-organization that everybody talks about. So stop having management that much and start having inside management. Basically, self-organization, it doesn't mean that you stop having management. It means that you stop having micromanagement. And you trust the people that they will do the best job. You delegate this power of managing their work to them, because in a complex knowledge work environment, it makes a lot more sense because they know what they need to do, and no manager would know what they need to do because of the whole complexity of the work. Okay, then the third thing is way of working. I think it's important to come with experience from the outside and to suggest what way of working is useful in a certain context. For example, in a team that does support, you'd probably need a flow-based system like Kanban or Lean or anything like that, and something that's iterative doesn't work like Scrum or AXP or DSDM, because you just cannot have the same amount of time for doing something. You need to deliver more often and faster. So if you're like sysadmin, if you work in a support for other teams, if you just give general support like call center type of support, here you need to have a flow-based system. While when you just deliver features or you work on some bigger projects, let's say you create some software features, or you work in a marketing area and your feature is to create this branding manual, all these things will take longer. And of course it makes sense to try to have deliverables every week, every 2 weeks, or every 10 days, or it depends on how you want to put it. So this is the framework that I'm talking about. And with all these small bits and pieces, you start creating a way of working for the teams. And the context is king. This is what we always say. It's very important to understand what's the context of the team through an analysis of their current way of working, and after that start explaining what options they have. Quite often I let the teams choose what they want to do, because I think it's not my job to, as an external or as a consultant, as an organizational coach, to tell them what to do in order to achieve their work. I do make recommendations. I do explain what I would like to do in that context, what I think works in my experience, and I think this is this is the power of an external consultant, where you saw a lot of things working or not working, so they can choose faster with a smaller probability to fail. Of course, nobody is perfect, and this is why we talk about the framework. The more complex the situation is and the organization, the more complex the implementation of that framework will be, and it will take more time. So you can start from a smaller kind of environment, test it out to experiment, but then you need to add on top of that certain filters, certain areas, certain tools, until everybody's happy with the way of working and you have a stable environment. And then typically what I would do is I would just leave the teams just work like that for a few months without any other distractions, and they could just come to me and ask certain situations, certain questions, certain specific situations that they had during their work. And the most important, I left that to the last, it's the fourth one is the system thinking. So I think it's extremely important that when you do organizational coaching to look at the whole system. And this is one of the main reasons why I think that when you do technical coaching, you need to understand organizational coaching as well. And when you do organizational coaching, you need to understand technical coaching as well. Because we work in a system. So you cannot start just by saying, okay, let's reform the teams and that's all. Because sometimes if you reorganize the teams in a certain way, it will be a lot harder for the technicians, for the professionals in that team to work. And if you don't have the technical skills, the technical abilities to know how they need to work, probably you can take bad decisions. Sometimes in their discussions, you can understand what their technical pains are, from architecture, from design, bug solving, tools, testing, automation, continuous integration, continuous delivery, DevOps. And if you don't understand all of these things, it will be very difficult to create this framework adapted to the team's needs. So this is where I think Agile coaching, as it's seen in this moment without any technical support, fails. And I know people will say, yeah, but there are areas where you don't have anything technical. I don't believe so. Even if you do marketing, you'll have specialists that know how to do graphical design. That's technical. You'll have specialists who know how to do how to write a text. You'd have people who are specialized in media and promotion and so on. So those are specialists. You need to understand what their pain is, and quite often they don't understand what their pain is. So this is why you need to understand a bit of the technical areas as well. So no matter where you want to implement Agile, I think it makes sense to have those skills, those technical skills, and start thinking the system in itself and not just of the organizational part, because it will work to some extent. Quite often it works, you do bring an improvement, but it can be just a minimal or a lateral improvement. Sometimes it's very big because the organization didn't have any framework, they were just in a chaotic state. So then the whole organizational coaching is a big help, but quite often it's not enough. So you cannot bring them to this level of self-organization that it would be extremely useful for them so that they can achieve self-management. What are the tools in Agile coaching? First of all, I think a coach needs to bring example by their own behavior. So we have this idea to act and to be like exactly as you preach. So I think it's very important. It's very important for a coach to behave in the way they explain, they train, they mentor, they coach, how they'd like others to be. So by bringing this example, others probably start looking at you and start learning how to behave. And there are also, I think, not also, but here are the main things, the small things. Not being late in a meeting, trying not to explain in a very complicated way. Try to listen to the others, try to be empathetic, try to explain when things are wrong, why they are wrong, try to come up with options for problems that exist, try not to have very long meetings, respect the others. So these are the small things that are extremely important when you talk about being an example for the others. Then an Agile Lean practitioner, that means not being just a theoretician, because there are quite a few people who started doing this job just because there are a lot of money into it. Practitioner means that you have done this work. You have done let's say, the work of a Scrum Master, because if you want to bring Scrum to an organization, you've done the work of DevOps if you want to work on DevOps. You understood what management is because you've done that type of work as well. So this is why I think it's very important to be a practitioner and just don't talk from the books. For product owners, I see this lack of knowledge in many Agile coaches because not a lot of them have done a product or started working on a backlog, from an idea to backlog, to putting it in production. And it starts becoming obvious when you see the shallow level of understanding. So a practitioner is often a lot more useful as a coach. Then being a coach, as I explained what a coach is, basically a coach needs to ask the questions and understand what the trainees' needs are, to try to guide the trainee toward their own answer. Then a teacher. Teaching means that you have a workshop, you know how to do something very well, you know how to explain it, so you do a workshop. Teaching means that you can pair with people, let's say on creating a product backlog, on creating an impact map, on understanding how the teams work by performing several retrospectives. This is also teaching. Then it's about being a mentor. A mentor is a bit more than a teacher because you choose your mentor and you would ask the mentor more than you do with the teacher, because the teacher explains you anyway, but the mentor is there just to give you guidance, continuous guidance towards your learning goals, while a teacher would have their goals in mind and go on with teaching whatever they think it's important, while a mentor is the opposite. It's always there for the mentee who would like to learn certain topics. A facilitator, this is a very important thing in any environment, no matter if it's an agile environment or not. A mentor, a facilitator would need to work with the teams and make their life easier. If you look back into the word's meaning, it comes from Latin and it means facile or something like that, means easy. So again, it's about system thinking and about looking at the whole system and try to understand how it's easier for them to do their job. If you say I'm facilitating a retrospective, it means I want to make it a lot easier for the team to retrospect. I want to extract as fast as possible their ideas about their self-improvement, because they need to focus on self-improvement while I will focus on guiding them towards that path in the easiest way possible for them. So this is what a facilitator does. This is what a facilitator of process does, because we talked a bit about processes in big organization. Well, you just have this process manager people who just change the processes and that's all. But when you're a facilitator of the process, that's a bit more. That's a lot more. You need to go to everybody involved with this process and start asking, is this process good enough for you? How would you improve it? Create these loops of continuous improvement on the process itself. So then you will start facilitating the process and not managing the process. And this distinction is extremely important, because when you just manage the process, there's not much feedback loop. While when you're facilitating the process, quite often the process is created with the help of the people that do the work, and you start extracting ideas from them and create a process so that it will help them little by little. So it's a bottom-up approach, while the other one, the process management, is a top-down approach typically. And the change agent. An agile coach needs to be a change agent. That means you want to constantly look at things that can be improved, and at the right moment, which is difficult to say when is the right moment, you need to start instilling that change. And quite often this happens because of the experience of seeing the certain ways of working in other places, or certain tools or practices that you know can work in certain contexts. So you need to start convincing the people or explaining what their options are for a certain situation, and constantly instilling this change that will bring them to a new level of performance. I prefer to say organizational coaching and not agile coaching. I said this previously and I want to say it again. I think agile coaching is just a misnomer. We don't have organizations that certify agile coaches, and even if we have them, probably they wouldn't be that efficient as the organizations that certify coaches. If you want to be a coach, I think you need to do something around a professional coach, so on your own feet. You need to do something around 300, 400, 500 hours of coaching, and you need to prove that you've done that. So that's a lot, and I think we have a lot agile coaches that didn't do those hours, not at all. So what are the essential skills of a coach? Instill trust. As I said, it comes from being an example. So you need to instill trust by doing what you said, by helping people, by helping them with their needs, with their situations, and you start having trust. With trust, you have this very big problem that you win it very difficult and you can lose it very easy. So you need to take care a lot with what you promise, what you do, promise only what you're sure you can do. Don't take more on your plate than it's possible. Observe. It's an essential skill to observe what is around you, people's attitudes, people's problems, people's real problems with respect to what they say there are their problems. Also, you can go to a certain degree of trying to understand the tone of people, when they're mad, when they are upset, how much people express themselves in an aggressive manner, in a passive or passive-aggressive manner, if they have a certain way of explaining or trying to solve things. Observe relationships between people, relationships in between people and their manager. There are so many things here that I could go on for maybe half an hour only about this topic, but I will just stop here. Then about people soft skills. So this is the idea that about communication, collaboration, and so on. So you need to be a people person and to understand all of these things, to be proficient in these social aspects of life. Psychology of change, to understand what happens in a person's mind when change comes along. It's not very nice for people who've been doing the same thing for a long time to come and say, yeah, it's not good, we need to change it. So you need to say things in a certain way so that they understand, and they understand that it helps them as well. And of course, some will agree, some will like it, but some others won't. So this is about the psychology of change and how we react when change happens. Public speaking is very important because you do need to speak a lot, and you need to speak with different types of audiences. So it's very important to understand the different audience that you have, to understand that with the manager, with the top manager, you'd speak in an extremely different way than how you'd speak with a programmer or with a marketing specialist or with a copywriter or with a tester and so on. It's important to understand the audience very much and to be clear, explicit, so that you can again instill trust. Because if you have good public speaking skills, you can instill trust. Product development. So now we're going on the, let's say, technical part of coaching. I believe that technical doesn't only mean writing code or writing tests or knowing how to put on a system of continuous improvement or things like that. Continuous deployment, I meant. It's also the other aspects of life, like product development, how to create a backlog, how to do refinement, how to make user experience. This is also a very technical side that often is forgotten, and we just put this on the shoulders of product owners, but quite often they don't know it, because product owner is a very new role and there aren't a lot of people in the organization who can help them understand how to do this job. Then you have technical hard topics about coding, testing, architecture, security, and so on. This is also very important as a skill, at least to understand them, or if you want to go even further, to do them hands-on. And then there's the last one, hands-on, not just consulting. Consulting for me means that I will tell you what to do, but I don't know how. Like an agile consultant comes and says you need to implement unit testing, and you do it. I don't know what unit testing is, I've never done it. I read that it's a good thing all over the place. I saw it work in several environments, but I don't know how to do that. So that's consulting, as opposed to hands-on coaching, where you could just sit at the desk and show them how to do unit testing. Again, if you don't have the skills, at least make sure as an organizational coach that someone will come along and will do this job of sitting with someone and making sure that they understand what unit testing is. That someone can be from the inside of the organization if they have these skills, but if they don't, you need to bring someone from the outside. Very important, a coach does not have all the answers, but often more questions. This can be frustrating for people who never worked with coaches, but I think it's a very important aspect that a coach in how it's defined as a role will probably give more questions. If you put the trainer hat on, you'd have a lot more questions. If you put your mentor on, a lot more answers. If you put your mentor hat on, you'll have a lot more answers. But a coach in itself won't have that many answers. So again, this is why the idea of Agile Coaching as a name is flawed, because often Agile coaches do need to have an answer. So in that moment, they're not coaches anymore. Probably they're trainers or consultants and so on. Or, yeah, something else, but probably consultants. What means technical coaching? You first of all need the soft skills. So if you have a very good programmer who doesn't know how to communicate, that's not a technical coach. That's just a very good programmer who will know how to do their job. The part of the social aspect, the social ideas from behind the technical coaching job are very important. And besides communication and facilitation, you need to be very skilled at understanding people's problems, understanding their limits, understanding not to create this environment where you don't judge them personally. You look at their work, at their code, at their scripts, their elements that they created, but quite often we get attached to this work we do. So if someone comes and starts criticizing our work, we may think that that person has something personal with us. But this isn't the case. A technical coach would need just to help them improve. But if we don't state that from the beginning, that there's nothing personal about here, I just want to help you improve your code, already things start being a lot better. Even like that, they can be difficult, but without this approach, this aspect, they can be extremely difficult and counterproductive. Then a technical coach shouldn't have only the skills of a coach. Again, should be a teacher, a mentor, and a facilitator. And I explained what these are a bit before. Then a technical coach would need to understand what are the best tools for that context. So maybe you need unit testing, maybe you need JUnit, maybe you need Jenkins for continuous integration, maybe you need something else. So a technical coach would need to have all this knowledge from the market tools, from the new shiny things that exist, and try to give certain recommendations for whatever works in that context. Again, it's a very context-based decision. The next important thing are technical practices. So you need to understand how to improve the teams, how to help the teams improve with certain practices. And quite often when you just come on board, you need to choose a certain backlog of practices. So you cannot teach a team 10 different tools and practices at once. You need to start from somewhere. And that's the job of the technical coach, to start understanding what's most important now, what makes more sense now, start training, start facilitating, start mentoring, and when you see that that practice was well implemented, you continue with the other one, and do the next one, and do the next one, until you have a certain level of stability. And then again, but the best idea would be to leave them a bit of space and start working in this new way until everything starts to look good for them, and then you can come again after a few months and continue with the new tools and practices to get them on a new level of performance. Technical coach should be knowledgeable in software architecture and software design, because quite often tools are very connected with the architecture of the system, and some of these tools and practices affect the quality of the design. So it's very important to be knowledgeable at least, or even guide them on these topics. What a technical coach is also doing is doing some group work, teamwork. So something like pair programming, mob programming, coding dojos, coding katas, helping teams set up a Jenkins and so on. So this is work that you do, and the technical coach would be the guide, the main person guiding this whole implementation process of these new tools. So there are some concerns. This is one of concern that I have, again a quote, and many large companies, Agile Coach is a person for someone who neither programs nor tests software, but they just added them to this development team to make them more productive. So it's a kind of a new type of middle management. This is how big organizations see the Agile Coach or even the Scrum Master. And this concern is very valid in big organizations, because we have this saying that they want to change. Yes, they say want to change, but in fact they don't want to change a lot in depth. So they just put a new role, but the new role does what the old middle manager was doing, or the old project manager was doing, and that's not helpful at all. This is a very deep concern when we talk about agile transformations, and I think it happens all over the place in big organizations. I never see it not happening. Of course, with a lot of consulting, with a lot of organizational coaching, you can start little by little moving companies from this situation, but they do need to want to change. And quite often they don't, because they don't see the value of this, or they're just afraid of changing to something that they don't know. And this is where I guess the whole trust in the consultant comes in hand. So if you are trusted well by the top management, then probably changes will start happening. But you need to understand also the whole complexity of a big organization, and even if top management would like to change something, they cannot. Even that quite often they say they are the leaders, they cannot, because there is so big pushback from the middle management layers. More concerns. These are my concerns. They're not quotes anymore. Organizations start adopting a new way of working without understanding what the technical people need. So it's just that someone read in Forbes or Harvard Business Magazine that this agile thing is working, so they want to adopt it. They call consultants. They never ask the teams or the technical people, what do they need? Maybe they don't need this agile thing. Maybe they need something else. Maybe they just need a new tool. Maybe they just need a better working space. Maybe it's just that there are not enough people in that department. So I think we need to start looking at people and their needs, and then bottom up understand what is the process they'd like to adhere to, Don't treat it like a top-down process, but more like a bottom-up framework. Start adding bits and pieces until it's something that fits them, and then you'll start seeing an increase in productivity. And this bottom-up can be agile or not. It's not that important. It's just more important that those people will have a better job, a better life, and in the same time the organization will have more output, more throughput, so more efficiency, so more money. I think it's a win-win for everybody. It's just that we need to start in this way. The second concern is that I see Agile doesn't work. And the main reason is that you just do a small bit of change in a certain part of a big organization, and then of course the rest of the organization is different. So if you say we're gonna deliver software to the market every week, but if the rest of the organization is used to delivering every year or every 6 months, probably it's very difficult to change their minds, and it will take a long time until everybody will just give you bits and pieces, and you can deliver maybe every month instead of every 6 months. And of course you won't be agile, right? Because that's the idea behind it. Agility to the market means that you can adapt in the market, and it's completely right. Until you've done all the changes in all the business stream, in all the value stream, starting from the business, product, middle management, team infrastructure, and putting all the other collaborators. Sometimes you have external collaborators, teams, or companies, providers. Until you've put all that into place, into a new framework of working that focuses on the value stream, on time to market, nothing will work, and you won't be agile. Maybe you'll be more productive, more efficient in a small team, but if you look on the value stream, you won't deliver faster. So then what's the purpose? I think it is also more frustrating for the people in that area. You've invested in them, you gave them promises, but then they see that not a lot has changed in the outside of their small world. So when you do a change, it's very important to do that change for all the value stream, and think about value streams, and don't think anymore about departments or silos. The third and one of the most important concerns I have is that the changes are considered as being easy without understanding the whole system. So it's like, yeah, okay, whatever, we'll put on continuous improvement and everything works. But if you have certain systems that are extremely old, probably that implementation of a continuous deployment will take 9 months, just because you didn't think about the complexity of the whole system. So I see a lot of views that are that are not very deep when we think about changes that we need to do in a system. Finally, I have 6 advice. Always have organization and technical coaching. Either the same person or different persons, but you need to have both of them quite from the beginning, because they intertwine, that they help each other, and if you have more people, they need to stay in continuous communication and to do their job well, but like there would be just one person. Because otherwise you'll have frustration that someone says go to the left, someone says go to the right, and then the people say, what the hell are we doing here? We have change, these people skilled in change management who don't know how to talk to each other, so that becomes extremely frustrating. Second, focus on the whole system when starting a change. Either top down or whatever, but look at the whole system that's involved and try to change a part of a system or a subsystem. Don't just change a team in a corner, because that won't be very effective in big organizations. In small organizations that will work a lot better, because the whole complexity is smaller. Third, care about the people involved. We're talking about change, and change affects people. And quite often they know what's better for the organization than management knows. So start bottom up when you do this change. The change instilled by the Agile coaches doesn't work without support from the key roles. So you'd need like the security manager, you'd need the testing manager, the programmers manager, or whatever key roles you have, I don't know, top management, and sometimes even more than key official roles, you have unofficial people who are extremely influential. So don't look only at the things that are put on paper, also try to find out who are the unofficial key roles. And these are typically technical people who are extremely skilled, or not necessarily technical people. They can be anyone who's extremely skilled, who's very well respected for what they say. So if they won't support you, nothing will be done, really. And continuing on this idea, the fifth point is that technical people will know how to sabotage the change if they don't believe in it. So it's very important to understand what you are doing, to discuss with them, to understand if they support it, and only after that start making the change when they completely understand why we do this. The sixth advice, and that's extremely important, I think maybe it should be 0 here: don't blame. Quite often we are frustrated that somebody did something stupid, or they were against the change. Don't blame. Everybody has a good reason for what they do, and be empathetic. Try to understand where they're coming from. Find the reason. It's not about the people and what they do, it's about the system and how the system pushed them to do something. It's about their current way of understanding of what they need to do. So if you want to change something, just change the system and don't blame the people involved in the system. This is the key role, and these are the key ideas of human-centered design, that the system is flawed if the people make mistakes. Try to make this a system so easy to understand so that people who in parentheses, people who are smart are lazy, will take the shortest path to do something, and that shortest path will help everybody. And that is about managing and facilitating a framework or a process. So thank you for watching. These are some details about me. You'll be able to find a slide in the description below. And until next time, don't forget to be digital, but also to be a human.